The story begins with Sarah Frost, an American photojournalist stationed in war-torn Afghanistan. She's there to capture the brutal reality of the conflict, her camera documenting moments of violence and desperation. But Sarah's life is about to change forever in the blink of an eye. In one scene, Sarah enters a modest home only to be met by a woman clutching what appears to be a baby. The woman is frantic, pleading for Sarah's help, her voice trembling with fear. Sarah moves closer, drawn by the woman's distress. However, something feels wrong. An eerie sensation washes over Sarah as she notices something off about the child. Suddenly, the baby is revealed to be a decoy, a dummy concealing an explosive. Before Sarah can react, a violent explosion erupts, leaving her world in darkness. When the smoke clears, Sarah realizes her eyesight is gone, lost to the traumatic event that would stay with her forever. 3 years later, Sarah is back in the US, struggling to rebuild her life after the trauma she endured in Afghanistan, which continues to haunt her dreams. Now living with her boyfriend Ryan in his luxurious penthouse, Sarah finds a sense of stability and comfort. Ryan is her anchor, a safe harbor amidst her lingering fears and memories. Yet even within the walls of this upscale apartment, life remains far from peaceful. Shadows from the past and new dangers lurking around her soon disrupt the fragile calm she's tried to create, forcing Sarah to confront threats she never anticipated. It's New Year's Eve, and there's a sense of celebration in the air. While Ryan stays at home, Sarah steps out to buy some celebratory drinks, using the opportunity to navigate her way through the bustling streets alone, a test of her independence despite her blindness. But on her way, she collides with a cyclist, causing her to fall. A man steps in to help her up, and she thanks him before making her way back to the penthouse. The encounter feels strange, but she brushes it off, determined to celebrate New Year's Eve with Ryan. Sarah returns home and calls out for Ryan, but there's no response. As she heads toward the kitchen, we see Ryan's lifeless body lying on the floor, indicating that someone has murdered him. Sarah knows nothing about this, and the killer who ended Ryan's life is still in the apartment. He watches Sarah closely. Unaware of the danger lurking nearby, Sarah decides to take a shower. After her shower, when she reaches for her towel, she notices it's further away than expected. The killer has moved the towel closer to her, testing how much he can manipulate her surroundings without her noticing. Yet Sarah remains unaware of his presence. Afterwards, she continues to call out for Ryan, but still receives no response, leading her to believe he might have stepped out. Later, while working in the kitchen, Sarah accidentally slips in her boyfriend's blood. As she feels around to understand what's happening, she makes a horrifying discovery. Ryan's dead body lies before her, murdered. Overcome with sadness, she begins to cry, now feeling both heartbroken and deeply afraid. Trying to gather herself, Sarah attempts to leave the apartment, but she accidentally bumps into the killer. Panicked, she asks, "Who are you?" In a terrifying revelation, she realizes it's the same man who helped her on the street earlier after her collision with a cyclist. The killer then admits, "I've been watching you for days." He reveals that he knew she was blind, which is why he didn't harm her immediately. Desperate for an opportunity to escape, Sarah dashes to her bedroom, slamming the door shut behind her and quickly barricading it to buy herself some time. Her heart races as she fumbles with her phone, managing to send a quick voicemail to a friend, urgently asking them to call the police. But her relief is short-lived. The killer, determined and unyielding, isn't far behind. Within moments, he forcefully shatters the bedroom window, entering the room in a terrifying burst of glass. Before Sarah can react, he overpowers her, swiftly binding her hands to prevent any further attempts to escape or call for help. The situation feels increasingly hopeless, with each second tightening his control over her. Now at his mercy, Sarah has no choice but to listen as he questions her about Ryan. The killer insists that Ryan wasn't the man she thought he was. He explains that Ryan was no investor. Instead, he was a thief who stole something valuable. The killer wants it back, and he believes Sarah knows where it is. She denies knowing anything, but the killer isn't convinced. Sensing her growing fear, he sees an opportunity to manipulate her further. The killer momentarily loosens his grip, allowing Sarah a brief respite. Seizing the opportunity, she asks if she can put on warmer clothes, explaining that she's feeling cold. The killer, slightly distracted, agrees, turning away as he answers a call. While he's occupied, Sarah discreetly grabs her camera, hiding it behind her back. Her mind races, knowing this may be her only chance. As the killer ends his call and turns back to her, Sarah swings the camera at him with all her strength, catching him off guard. Stunned, he stumbles, giving Sarah just enough time to break free. She bolts out of the apartment, dashing down the stairs as her heart pounds with fear and adrenaline. Sarah reaches the basement, her voice echoing as she cries out for help, hoping someone will hear her. By a stroke of luck, her friend Antonio arrives, and a wave of relief washes over her. She begs him to call the police, feeling a glimmer of hope for the first time since the nightmare began. But before Antonio can react, the killer appears again, attacking with brutal efficiency and silencing him. Horror-stricken and realizing that safety is still out of reach, Sarah stumbles back out onto the street. Desperately, she seeks help from anyone nearby, her pleas growing more frantic as she grasps at any chance of escaping the relentless danger closing in on her. At this critical moment, Sarah encounters another man named Robert. He appears genuinely concerned and offers to help, his demeanor calm and reassuring. Desperate for any support, Sarah quickly places her trust in him, sharing everything she knows, including her suspicions about the man who attacked her. Robert listens intently, nodding sympathetically, and even calls the police right in front of her, further earning her trust. But Robert's kindness is a facade. Rather than guiding her to safety, he subtly steers her back into the building, manipulating her into returning to the very place she was so desperately trying to escape. Unaware of his true intentions, Sarah follows, believing she has found an ally. Once inside the penthouse, Robert's intentions become unmistakably sinister. The warm, concerned demeanor he previously showed Sarah is gone, replaced by a look of cold determination. He's not here to protect her. He's here for one reason alone: to find the fortune that Ryan, Sarah's boyfriend, supposedly stole. Robert's true colors reveal themselves in an instant as he teams up with the killer, forming a deadly alliance that traps Sarah with nowhere to escape. The two men close in on Sarah, cornering her in her own home. Robert's tone is threatening as he demands, "Enough of this, Sarah. Tell us where Ryan hid the stolen goods." Sarah's heart pounds, her mind racing. She's trapped with two dangerous men, and her only hope of survival lies in playing along. Taking a shaky breath, she tries to buy herself time. I don't know what you're talking about," she stammers, hoping they'll relent. But her words only intensify their anger. Her captor's patience is wearing thin, and they're determined to get answers. Robert steps closer, his eyes narrowing. "Don't lie to us, Sarah. We know Ryan took something valuable, and you're going to tell us where it is," he snaps, his voice ice cold. Sarah feels the walls closing in on her, desperation clawing at her insides. Realizing that denying knowledge of Ryan's secrets won't help, she decides to cooperate, if only to keep herself alive a little longer. Her gaze shifts toward a large framed photograph hanging on the wall. "Behind that picture," she says, voice trembling as she points to it. Robert and the killer exchange a skeptical glance before moving toward the frame. The killer reaches out, roughly yanking it off the wall and tossing it aside, revealing bundles of cash hidden behind it. Their eyes light up with greed as they grab at the money, stuffing it into bags. The sight of the cash is a brief reprieve for Sarah, giving her a few precious moments to breathe. But she knows this is only a small part of what they're after. Robert's suspicion isn't satisfied. His gaze shifts back to Sarah, assessing her carefully, and then lands on the necklace around her neck. The single diamond pendant gleams, catching his attention. "That's a pretty necklace you're wearing," Robert remarks, his tone laced with distrust. Sarah instinctively clutches it, her heartbeat quickening. She knows that if she shows any weakness, they'll pounce on it. But Robert's curiosity is piqued, and he's not about to let it go. "That's not just any diamond, is it? Ryan was involved in a major heist, wasn't he? I'm betting that what you're wearing is part of that haul." Sarah instinctively recoils, stepping back in terror. Realizing she has no choice, Sarah decides to cooperate further, hoping compliance will keep her alive. "Yes, Ryan gave this to me," she admits, carefully choosing her words. "But it's the only thing he ever gave me. I don't know about any other diamonds." Robert's face darkens, dissatisfied with her response. He's convinced she knows more. "Don't try to fool us," he snaps. "Ryan wouldn't steal just one diamond. There's more, isn't there? Tell us where he hid the rest." Trembling under their piercing gazes, Sarah searches for an answer that might placate them. "Look," she whispers, barely able to speak through her fear. "There's a hidden compartment in the floor. I don't know what's in it, but maybe he kept something there." She hopes this will satisfy them, if only temporarily. The mention of a hidden compartment catches their interest. The killer and Robert exchange a glance, a silent agreement passing between them, his expression one of intense focus. But when he opens it, he finds only a deck of playing cards. Frustration flashes across his face as he flips through the cards, finally landing on the ace of diamonds. Written on it is a taunting message from Ryan. "I'm number one." Robert's face twists with fury as he realizes he's been played. He mutters, clenching his fists as he glares at Sarah. The killer, equally enraged, slams his fist into the floor in anger. "Where are the real diamonds, Sarah?" he growls, his voice thick with menace. Sarah feels the weight of their anger bearing down on her, intensifying the already suffocating fear that grips her. "I swear I don't know anything else," she says, her voice barely a whisper. "Ryan kept so many secrets. I didn't even know about this." Robert's patience is gone. He exchanges a look with the killer, their frustration turning to anger. "She's lying," Robert snaps, his face contorted with rage. "She has to know where they are." The killer nods in agreement, his eyes glinting with a dangerous light as he moves closer to her, his voice a harsh whisper. "If you're lying, Sarah, things will only get worse for you." Just then, a knock sounds at the door. Sarah's heart skips a beat. It's her sister, arriving for the New Year's party as they'd planned. Terrified of what might happen, Sarah quickly convinces her sister to leave, using the excuse of an argument with Ryan to keep her away from the danger inside. Her sister, concerned but unaware of the truth, reluctantly leaves, sparing herself from the same horrific fate that threatens Sarah. With her sister safely gone, Sarah turns back to her captors, knowing she's running out of options. They're growing more impatient, and Robert's greed is starting to drive a wedge between him and the killer. Desperation gnaws at Sarah, but she sees a glimmer of hope in their simmering distrust. Robert's face contorts with rage, and he turns on Sarah, his anger boiling over. Before he can act, Sarah fires the gun, grazing him and causing him to stumble. A struggle ensues, and Sarah, fueled by a fierce survival instinct, manages to escape his grasp. She bolts toward the terrace, where the open air offers a fleeting sense of hope. Robert, enraged and determined to end this once and for all, chases after her. In a climactic final showdown on the terrace, Sarah uses Robert's greed against him. She throws the diamonds off the edge, watching as he lunges after them, losing his balance and plummeting to his death. The killer meets a similar fate, left with nothing but the cruel twist of his own greed and betrayal. Finally, Sarah stands alone, battered but alive. In the film's closing moments, she gathers the remaining diamonds and places them in ice cube trays in the freezer, a hidden treasure now safely in her control. If you enjoyed this deep dive, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe for more thrilling breakdowns,